So today on This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT, we're doing a flatbed lane analysis out there. And flatbeds right now, as some of you see, tender rejections are creeping up out there, right? Diesel prices are creeping up out there as well. They've already creeped, right? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It's kind of ridiculous. And especially in this freight market that we're going to be breaking down today. So flatbed, Ontario, California, going to Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, first and foremost, if you are going out there and trying to read a lane, miles, look at that one, 650. So days of the week very much matter on when you're going to ship this out. Obviously, if you get a carrier who's based in Utah, they just want to get home on a Friday for a Monday. But more often than not, it's going to be more expensive to pick this up on a Friday or a Thursday and deliver it on a Monday. But Monday through Thursday shipping day, you're going to find that consistency. This lane, though, as we're kind of seeing, I look at it as again, I want to find that stability out there in any lane. And I want to deliver that stability to bring it out to my customers. So, but if we're looking at this, I want you to pay attention to this one here, because if we're looking at February of 2026, it was, the average was like 1,900 is what this lane was paying. But this same lane last year in February of 2025 was 1,663, right? So that's like almost a $300 increase that was out there. Now, March started to creep up. You were at about 1,800 and of 2025. And obviously we're in the middle of it right now, but this is a lane to watch, right? And I think right now in particular, obviously fuel prices. California has god-awful high fuel prices. Even when everybody else in the rest of the country has decent, they still have exponentially higher fuel prices out there, but we won't get into that on the lane analysis. But I want you to start paying attention to this stuff, because these are the markers that I watch. Now, if you're out there in a line haul plus fuel rate with your customers, whether you're in an RFP or dedicated or however that works, you're in a pretty good spot. You don't necessarily need to go in and raise your prices. Not right now anyways, because you make up for the additional rate increases that you see from the carrier community in your fuel prices. But if you're in a spot market, truck in hand style situation, I think that at least in flatbed, because it's started, right? Like flatbed season has started out there right now. And how do I know that? Because I move 99% of my freight is flatbed, and I'm starting to see, I'm not going to say like extremely tight capacity out there, but you're starting to there's definitely a lot more opportunities that are moving out there. So capacity can be limited at times, but again, I look at it as if you're in a spot market, truck in hand style pricing thing, when you're going through a market shift, like it's signs are pointing that way. I'm, like I had mentioned on Monday's show, I'm waiting to see really what happens in the Middle East here and how long that goes on before I'm going to really change my opinion on a lot of things, because like, I don't want to just have to talk for the sake of talking. I actually like to give you guys advice that I apply inside of my business and how I actually win real freight with my customers. But this lane in particular, this is a lane to watch, specifically California fuel prices. Okay, so if you are out there and you're operating in anything in California, be aware of this, because the longer that fuel prices remain elevated, your rates are going to come along with it. And you need to pass that information along to your customers. I look at it like this, you guys, no matter what, I would rather lose freight in the short term because I told my customer the truth, i.e., hey, this is what's going on. This is what we'll need to move this. And then obviously there's always going to be somebody else out there who's going to say they can do it for less in the meantime, but eventually it comes back, right? Because I like to be the, kind of like the last to raise my rates and the first to drop my rates, if that makes sense. Because again, I want to get that 12-month stability out there to my customer. And, but I also wanted to, so that's this breakdown on this. This is a lane to watch. I think that this summer is going to continue to see elevated rates out there in flatbed, because like out west here, you guys, again, pay attention that there's a ton of data center construction going on out there. So it's going to inevitably affect other freight markets that kind of come along with it. That is going to wrap up This Week in Freight, powered by DAT. It's a flatbed lane analysis out here, but I'm going to do a little bonus on this. So I had a viewer reach out about open deck and or like about heavy haul and over dimensional freight in regards to this. And I, I don't know if they're a carrier or a broker, but they were talking specifically about organizing pilot cars and permit cars. If you're a broker, the carrier that you source for this, they need to be the ones doing all of that, right? Now you mark up your load accordingly to cover those those pilot car and permit costs to your customer, so they're aware of that. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see out there, and I hear because some of my friends drive heavy haul. The biggest mistake that most brokers make when they go out there is they think it's a one size fits all, like a legal dry van load or a legal flatbed load. They think it doesn't matter if it's 12 wide, 14 high, or 12 wide, 14 high, or 14 wide, 16 high. So like they think it's just kind of like the same. And every single overdimensional load is different. They're all unique in their own right. But again, because like there's so many different parameters that come into this, and I want you to be aware of this. So it's like there's some great software that is out there that you can utilize because every state is different. General rule of thumb, this is what I follow. Anything west of the Mississippi, they're all pretty similar outside of Oregon and New Mexico. Everything east of the Mississippi, everything's essentially the same, right? Anything above 13.6 high, you're going to have to pull permits. Out west, most states you can go up to about 14 high before you need to pull permits. So, again, pay attention to those little things. But like if you're a broker, your carrier should be organizing pilot cars and permit cars, but again, pilot cars and permits, excuse me. But it's on you as a broker to ensure that they have all of this information so they can go out there and organize that stuff, and they have the right dimensions, the right weights, the right everything. Because again, you guys, it is a game of inches when it comes down to it. And if you're going to go out there and quote that stuff, you got to be very aware. The more specialized the equipment, the more expensive this stuff is going to be, right? So it's like just because a 6-axle RGN quotes it at one thing, and then you go out there and you might have to source an 8 or a 9-axle RGN for the same load because of capacity, their rates can be more expensive because the cost to operate that equipment varies on a truck by truck basis. So that's why it's like if you're going to go out there as a broker and get into the heavy haul and the overdimensional space, you got to be very careful about that because you can get yourself in a couple of tricky situations right away. You might not be aware of, especially when it comes to permit costs, pilot cars, route surveys, and it's a literal state by state basis. So proceed with caution. But to the viewer's question that is out there, if you're a broker, you need to have your carrier organize by pulling permits and pilot cars. And trust me, all of the overdimensional carriers that I work with, they're very dialed in on that. Trust me, they're not going to take your load if you don't have that information. I can guarantee you that. But if you're a carrier out there and you're maybe getting into that for the first time, there's a lot of great software that will give you all of this data for you to utilize. But I think to take it a step further, if you're a carrier and you're looking to get into heavy haul, find a mentor and talk to them about it before you get into that, because it's just a completely different ball game. One of my friends, Gary Johnson, he's very active on LinkedIn. He'll tell you, he'll be the first one to tell you about a lot of this. I would look at it into getting a mentor or speaking to some people who do that before I would go in and start pulling heavy haul if I was a carrier and I was thinking about doing that.